The summer of 1994 should have been perfect for the Patterson family. But when Michigan State Police found that rusted bicycle lock at their abandoned campsite, nobody could explain why it was there. The Pattersons didn't own bikes. July 15, 1994. Traverse City, Michigan. North Woods Campground sat along the eastern shore of Lake Michigan, where families came to forget their routines. Site 47 had been reserved for 3 nights under the name Robert Patterson. He'd arrived Friday afternoon with his wife Linda and their 2 boys, Tyler, 8, and Brandon, 6. Other campers remembered them clearly. Normal family, quiet kids. The mother had a slight limp from an old injury. They'd set up a blue Coleman tent, started a fire, roasted marshmallows. By Monday morning, the tent stood empty. Sleeping bags still rolled out, car keys on the picnic table, Linda's purse tucked inside the tent flap. Their Ford station wagon sat locked in the same spot. The only thing out of place was a bicycle lock, thick rusted chain with a master lock padlock coiled near the fire pit like someone had dropped it in a hurry. Park Ranger Tom Novak called it in at 7:45 a.m. The family who'd reserved the site hadn't checked out. Protocol was to wait until noon, but something felt wrong. The coffee pot on the camp stove was full, cold, never poured. 3 deputies arrived by 9 o'clock. They walked the beach, checked the tree line, sent a boat along the shore. Nothing. But here's what made everyone pause. That bicycle lock wasn't just abandoned, it was locked around nothing, the chain forming a closed loop about 18 inches wide. Detective Maurice Schultz photographed it from every angle. No bicycles at the campsite, no bike rack on the Pattersons' car, no mention of bikes in any witness statements. Just this lock, heavy enough to secure a motorcycle sitting by a dead fire. The search expanded. State police brought dogs, helicopters, volunteer divers. Lake Michigan in July was cold but swimmable. If the family had gone night swimming, if there'd been an accident, bodies should have surfaced within days. They didn't. The weather had been calm, no storms, no rogue waves. Other campers heard nothing unusual that night. One couple in Site 45 mentioned voices around 11 p.m., but nothing alarming. Just conversation, maybe laughter. After 2 weeks, the search scaled back. The case shifted from rescue to recovery, then from recovery to cold case. The theory was drowning, had to be, even without bodies. Lake Michigan was massive, 22,400 square miles. Currents could carry victims miles from shore. It happened every summer. Families underestimating the water, getting caught in an undertow. Detective Schultz filed her report on August 10th. Probable drowning, bodies unrecovered, case suspended pending new evidence. But she kept that photograph of the bicycle lock. Something about it bothered her. Why bring a bike lock camping with no bikes? Why was it locked in a loop? In her personal notes, never filed officially, she wrote, "Lock appears staged. Corrosion pattern suggests older than 1 season. Family likely never saw it." The Patterson house in Grand Rapids sat empty for 6 months before the bank foreclosed. Robert's brother cleaned it out, found nothing unusual. Photo albums, tax returns, the boys' report cards. Tyler had been learning violin. Brandon loved dinosaurs. Normal family, normal life, until they weren't. Years passed. The campground updated its facilities, paved the access road, installed new fire rings. Site 47 became Site 62 after renumbering. New families pitched tents where the Pattersons had vanished. Nobody mentioned the case anymore. It was just another Lake Michigan tragedy, filed away with dozens of others. But stories have a way of resurfacing. September 2021. The worst drought in Michigan's recorded history had dropped Lake Michigan to historic lows. Water levels fell 16 feet below normal. Boat launches became concrete cliffs. Beaches stretched out like deserts. And things that had been underwater for decades began to emerge. Shipwrecks from the 1800s, old pier pilings, cars from the 1950s. Local news called it the lake's memory, revealing itself piece by piece. Danny Hoffman was metal detecting near the old North Woods beach when his detector screamed. He was used to finding coins, fishing lures, the occasional ring. But 18 inches down in what used to be lake bottom, his shovel hit something solid. Canvas, maybe rubber, preserved by the cold water and sand. He brushed away the sediment carefully. It was a backpack, olive green, waterproof with sealed zippers, the kind serious hikers used in the 1990s. Danny almost didn't open it, almost called the Park Service first, but curiosity won. The first zipper revealed a wallet, leather, swollen but intact. Michigan driver's license, readable despite the years. Robert Patterson, the photo showing a man with thick glasses and a nervous smile. Behind it, Linda Patterson, same address. 2 library cards with the boys' names, Tyler Patterson, Brandon Patterson, every piece of ID the family should have been carrying. The main compartment held more. A journal, pages fused together but the cover still showing Tyler's name in careful cursive. A heavy brass key attached to a small metal tag stamped with 217. And at the very bottom, wrapped in a plastic bag that had somehow held its seal, another Michigan license. This one belonged to David Morse, 1280 Marina Drive, Traverse City. Danny called 911. Within an hour, the beach was crime scene tape and uniforms. Detective Schultz had retired 5 years earlier, but they called her anyway. She arrived wearing civilian clothes, her hair gray now, that same focused expression. She looked at the contents spread on an evidence tarp and said 5 words. This wasn't an accident. The key was for a master lock, same brand as the bicycle lock from 1994. She'd kept the original in evidence, against protocol, but following instinct. The key fit perfectly. Click, turn, open. 27 years of questions unlocked with one motion. But what did it mean? Why hide the key? Why was David Morse's ID with the family's belongings? Records showed David Morse had operated Morse Marina from 1987 to 1994. 3 boats in his fleet, all documented, all accounted for. Except investigation revealed something odd. Coast Guard records listed 4 boats registered to the marina. The 4th, a 26-foot cabin cruiser named Deep Peace, had supposedly been sold in September 1994 to a buyer in Florida. Cash transaction, no financing, minimal paperwork. The buyer's name was illegible on the carbon copy. The boat was never registered in Florida. It had simply disappeared. Detective Ashley Park, now leading the cold case unit, found Morse's old employee, Eddie Vance, living in a Traverse City nursing home. 83 years old, sharp memory, eager to talk. Dave was particular about his boats, Eddie said, kept logs for everything, gas, maintenance, rentals. But July 15, 1994 was missing from the rental logs. The page had been torn out. Eddie remembered because Dave had asked him to work that weekend, then changed his mind Friday afternoon. Said he'd handle the marina himself. Unusual, because summer weekends were their busiest time. He gave me $50, told me to enjoy my time off. I didn't ask questions. The investigation turned to David Morse himself. He'd left Traverse City 6 weeks after the Pattersons disappeared, sold the marina for below market value, moved to Fort Myers, Florida. Lived quietly, no family, worked maintenance at a golf course. Died in 2019, pancreatic cancer. His apartment had been cleaned out by the landlord, everything thrown away except for 1 box of papers the landlord thought might be important. Tax documents mostly, but at the bottom, an envelope marked, "Upon my death." Inside, a single sheet of paper, handwritten, "Some sins can't be forgiven. The lake keeps its secrets. I'm sorry about the boys. But here's where the story takes its darkest turn. Tyler's journal, once dried and carefully separated by forensics, revealed entries from their camping trip. July 14th. Dad said we might go fishing tomorrow. Mom doesn't want to. July 15th morning. Man from the boats came to breakfast. Dad knows him from work. July 15th afternoon. Mom is crying. The boatman said we're going somewhere special tonight. I don't want to go on a boat. The last entry, scrawled in pencil. He said if we're good, we can come back. Brandon is scared of the water. The man has a chain. Robert Patterson had been an accountant at First National Bank of Grand Rapids. In October 1994, 2 months after the family disappeared, auditors discovered discrepancies in several commercial accounts. Nearly $200,000 had been moved through complex transfers, then withdrawn in cash over 6 months. The transfers had started in January 1994, stopped the day the Pattersons vanished. The bank wrote it off as embezzlement by a missing employee. Insurance covered the loss, case closed. But David Morse had banked at First National. His marina business had 3 separate commercial accounts there. Robert Patterson had been his account manager. The money trail, cold for decades, suddenly burned hot. Patterson had been stealing, Morse had caught him, and the lake had become their solution. Detective Park interviewed everyone who'd known Morse, former customers, neighbors, the hospice nurse who'd cared for him. A pattern emerged. Morse had owned a property, 20 acres on an inland lake, sold it in 1995. The new owners had found strange things: heavy chains in the barn, reinforced locks on cellar doors, scratches on the inside of a shed door like someone had tried to claw their way out. The search for deep peace began. If Morse had sunk it with the Pattersons aboard, it would be somewhere in Lake Michigan. But where? The lake was massive, up to 900 feet deep in places. Then a maritime historian mentioned something interesting. In 1994, there'd been an informal boat graveyard about 2 miles offshore from North Woods. Older vessels were sometimes scuttled there, illegal but common. The depth was manageable, about 100 feet, sandy bottom, strong currents that would scatter evidence. November 2021. A side-scan sonar team volunteered their services, 3 days of searching in a grid pattern. On day 4, they found an anomaly. Right size, right depth, metal signature consistent with a cabin cruiser. The ROV went down in gray winter light, cameras rolling. The hull appeared on screen, crushed by pressure but recognizable. The registration numbers were gone, but the configuration matched a 1987 Bayliner, same model as Deep Peace. Navy divers arrived the next week. What they found changed everything. The boat hadn't just sunk, it had been prepared to sink. Seacocks opened, hull valves removed, anchor chain wrapped around the cabin door handles from the outside. Inside the main cabin, they found bones, not scattered by currents or scavengers, but contained. 2 adult skulls, 2 child skulls, leg bones, ribs, the remnants of 4 people who'd gone into the water inside that boat. The chain around the cabin doors had held for 27 years. But there was more. In what had been the forward berth, divers found a plastic document case, the expensive kind meant to survive anything. Inside, wrapped in layers of plastic, was a confession, not from Morse, but from Robert Patterson. 5 pages, his handwriting confirmed by experts, dated July 15, 1994. I took the money. I had no choice. Linda's medical bills, the mortgage, everything was falling apart. I thought I could pay it back before anyone noticed. David found out 3 days ago. He said he had a solution. We could disappear, start over. He had connections in Florida. He said he'd bring a boat tonight. I'm writing this because I don't trust him. If something happens to us, David Morse killed my family. The boys don't know anything. God forgive me. The pages were water-stained but legible. Patterson had sealed his confession in layers of protection, maybe thrown it overboard as the boat went down, hoping someday it would surface. It had taken 27 years. The DNA confirmation came in December. The bones belonged to the Patterson family. All 4 had drowned, trapped in an air pocket as the boat sank, chain preventing escape. The medical examiner found no signs of violence before drowning. They'd been alive when the boat went under. Tyler, the 8-year-old who'd been learning violin, had died holding his younger brother. Their bones were found together in the corner of the main cabin, but one question remained. Why the bicycle lock? The answer came from the least expected source. David Morse's hospice nurse, Sarah Chen, had kept a box of his belongings he'd wanted destroyed. She'd meant to throw them away, but forgot. Among old photographs and letters was a receipt from a Traverse City hardware store, dated July 14, 1994. 1 master lock, 1 3-foot chain. The same day he'd met the Pattersons at their campsite. In his final delirium, Morse had rambled about marking the spot. The nurse hadn't understood then, but investigators did. The lock was a marker, Morse's way of marking where he'd taken them from. Maybe guilt, maybe trophy, maybe insurance in case he needed to prove something later. He dropped it at their campsite after leading them to the boat, knowing eventually someone would connect it to the crime. Case closed, officially. The Pattersons were murdered, Morse was the killer, the money was the motive. But in Traverse City, people still talk about that bicycle lock, how it sat by a cold fire for hours while a family drowned 2 miles offshore, how it waited 27 years for drought to reveal its secret. how a simple piece of hardware became the key to understanding why 4 people vanished on a calm summer night. Detective Schultz, pulled from retirement for the case conclusion, had the last word. Sometimes evidence isn't about what's there, it's about what shouldn't be there. That lock never belonged at that campsite. It was Morse telling us he'd won. Except he didn't. The lake gave them back. The Patterson boys were buried in Grand Rapids, their parents beside them. The headstone reads, "Together forever." Below that, smaller text, the truth surfaces. Lake Michigan is full again now. The drought ended, water levels recovered. The boat graveyard is hidden beneath 90 feet of dark water. Site 62 at North Woods Campground is still available for rental. Families still come, still roast marshmallows, still walk to the beach at sunset. But park rangers tell me something interesting. Every few weeks someone leaves a small toy at the site, a plastic dinosaur, the kind Brandon loved, a child's violin like Tyler played. Nobody knows who brings them. They appear at dawn, placed carefully near where the fire pit used to be. The rangers collect them, store them in a box marked Patterson Memorial. It's not official policy. It's just what feels right. The bicycle lock is now in the Michigan State Police Museum, part of their cold case exhibit. The little brass key is displayed beside it, still shiny despite the years underwater. The placard reads, "Evidence is patient. Justice waits." And sometimes, when Lake Michigan drops during dry summers, locals walk the exposed lake bed with metal detectors and careful eyes, not looking for treasure or relics, looking for answers to other questions, other families who never came home. Because if the Pattersons taught us anything, it's this: the lake remembers everything. We just have to wait for it to tell us.